This year I've been concentrating on one particular model that I'm very excited about. I've been developing many other models, but I haven't brought them out this year. Since I've got a really good model balance anyway, I didn't need to design other boards just for the sake of it. But this particular one, called the Scarpa, is a new idea that I have with different materials. You may have heard of EPS, polystyrofoam foam. I've never used that because it's full of air and it sucks in water and they bounce around in the chop too much. So I've never gone near the epoxy boards that are like that. But recently I've come across a foam called a fused pellet foam. It's styrofoam, but it's a fused pellet, so it doesn't absorb water. And so now I have a blank that doesn't absorb water, that paddles better than normal PU, but is not as corky and bouncy in chop as EPS is. I've taken this on board because I think it's a perfect medium in between the two extremes. So I've designed this board called the Scarpa, which is a diagonal stringer that runs down from the meets the nose, two stringers, and run down to the rail. Where it meets the rail, we have the side fins, and basically the stringers end there, so the tail flexes off those stringers. So it's got a lot of flex in the tail, and I glass these boards with a diagonal BDX, so there's no glass running 0-90, there's no stringers running 0-90, everything is on an angle. So the board's got a lot of life in it, particularly in the tail. So I call it the Scarpa. I'm also using the new power-based boxes that Greg Trotter does. You might see Owen Wright riding them. In those power-based boxes, in the rear they're 5 finners. These boards are all 5 finners. And the back fins, being the back side fins and the back centre fin, have an inch play in them, a whole inch. So you can, in smaller days, you can put the back fins further up, and so you get a much shorter arc. In the bigger days, you put the back fins back and you get a longer arc. It's not rocket science. It doesn't change the whole feeling of the board, it just shortens the arc or lengthens the arc. So you don't need to go scrambling for different fins, you just move your back ones up and back. That's a breakthrough because there's been no fin system that's allowed that movement. The front fins stay where they are, they don't move. That's a big feature of this particular model, and I put a carbon inlay down the very back of the tail to give it more tensile spring, give it real tensile spring. So the feedback I've been getting on this model so far has been fantastic. The Scarpa is basically the pseudo fish model made wider, but the Scarpa construction being the V2 stringers, the polystyrene, the power-based boxes can be in any of my models. I've done some in the little Zapper, I've done some in the Fat Bullet, so that construction can be in any of my models, and I'm pretty excited about it. So my big thrust this year is going to be the Scarpa and this new foam, and other shapers are starting to embrace this foam as well. I'm not the only one. So I'm hoping that this year we'll see a few Scarpas go to Japan, because you can have a smaller board again because it paddles better. It's a very light board which is quite strong. This foam is very strong, so my own boards only have one layer of 4 on the top and one layer of 4 on the bottom, and they're quite strong. But even if we put 2 layers of 4 on the deck, they're not heavy, they're still lighter than normal PU, and they are very strong on the deck. So the good thing about this construction course, it's all done exactly the same way as we make a normal surfboard. They don't have to be sent to China to be made because there's so much labour. Yes, there's a bit more labour in it, but not that much that we can't make them in Australia for a good price. So all this stuff's made in Australia, and I can custom make these boards, so you can have any design or any custom with this construction. So that's what I'm excited about. There seems to be a lot of exotic product coming with all the bells and whistles, e.g. the fire wires, and e.g. the fibre flexors, but all these things have to be made in China because they're so labour expensive. Well, this is not. This is made in Australia exactly the same way as we make surfboards. A little bit dearer because of the extra labour in the glassing, but everything else is fine. So look for the Scarpa this year. There's other products I've got coming which I'm designing it right now, but I won't come into them just yet. But They're ones I'm testing and designing. They're a bit left of centre. They're not pro boards, but there's some very smart hydrodynamics in some of these ideas I've got coming up, which I'll explain on my website pretty clearly when I divulge them.